Welcome back, Math Marvels. This is lesson 90, and in this lesson, we're going to make predictions with experimental probability. So, a lot of our criteria for success is the same as the last few lessons. We're still going to write probability as a fraction. We're going to turn fractions to percents. We're going to make predictions this time using our RP skills. So, we're either going to multiply percentages or we're going to use our ratio tables. And finally, we're going to make comparisons using that information. Jessica rolled a die 40 times. Her results are in the data table. Using the results of her experiment, what is the best prediction of how many sixes she will get if she rolls the die 365 times? Awesome sauce. So we have over here data represented from 40 trials. And we're going to use math to create a prediction. So watch what I'm going to do. We're going to use the experimental data on the left. And we're going to use that to predict what will happen next. So out of 40 trials, and these do represent part to whole relationships, out of 40 trials, she had a 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So 8 out of 40 times. I'm not going to simplify this only because we're going to use a calculator on this problem. And the reason I'm going to use a calculator is because the numbers we're working with aren't very friendly anyway. And we want to know how many times she would get a 6. So n out of 365 trials. So we're going to cross multiply. We've done this many times to make an equation. 40 times the number is equal to 8 times 365. And that is 2,920 is equal to 40 times the number. Let's get that number by itself. We're going to divide by 40 and keep balance by dividing the other side by 40. So 40 divided by 40 is 1 n, or just n. And 2,920 divided by 40 is 73. So now we'll just write this down in words based on the first 40 trials. The probability of rolling a 6 out of 365 trials is 73. So hit pause and jot this down into your notes. I'm going to show you another way we could have made this prediction using probability. So let's say, and I'm going to leave my answer here. I'm going to leave the final answer, but I am going to create another one. Okay. So we have our initial data, and we know that there were 8 out of 40 trials. What if we converted 8 out of 40 into a percent? So 8 divided by 40 is 0.20, or 20%. And what if we wanted to find what is 20% of 365? This is another pathway we could have taken. So I'm going to write that down as an equation. We know how to find percent of a number. We would simply do the percent as a decimal, so 0.20 times 365. 0.20 times 365. And I still get 73. So here is a second pathway to getting to the same answer. So in this case, again, just so you can see, I found probability as a percent. And then I found the percent of the number. And so here's a secondary way I could have solved this problem. Either way will work. So hit pause, and you can also jot this down if you'd like to try this during today's work. Raphael performed an experiment by spinning the arrow on a spinner 200 times. His results are recorded in the table below. Raphael will spin the arrow 20 more times. Based on the results in the table, which is the closest to the number of times he should expect the arrow to land on red? All right, so we want, again, the probability of red. We're going to express that first. In this case, it is 105 out of 200. And we want to know if he spins it 20 more times, how many times will it land on red? So we want of those 20 times. So one thing we could do, we can set a new ratio with 20 on the bottom, and we want to know how many times red on top. And we will cross multiply. So we have 200n is equal to 105 times 20. So I get 2,100 and 200n on this side. We're going to divide both by 200. And we get n is equal to 10.5 times. Now we can round this up. We can round it. So we could say about 11 times out of 20 spins. Now, which one of these is closest to that number? That 11 times is pretty clear. It's right here. 10 is the closest one. It's the closest to our approximation. So we can use that one. So hit pause and jot this down into your notes. And again, using the same method that we talked about before, I could also find the probability of getting red, change it to a decimal, and use that to make a prediction. So again, I have 105 out of 200. So let's find that as a decimal. 105 divided by 200 is 0.525. And if I want this out of 20 trials, so 52.5% of 20. We're going to do that math now. So 0.525 times 20. Let's make sure it writes it correctly. And you're still going to get 10.5. So again, this is another way that we could have solved the problem. We still would have gotten about 11. Both of these methods work. Whichever one you feel most comfortable with. You can take that probability and turn it into a decimal and then find out, well, what is that percentage of all the trials we're looking for? And that can be a prediction. Or if you feel more comfortable using a ratio table, you can just set up those proportions. Here's the probability of what's happened, and you can use that to find the prediction. All right, Math Marbles, that's it for today. Whichever you feel most comfortable with, go with it. But I always encourage you to try both to figure out what works best for you. I will see you in the next lesson. Be well.